When others travel through time and space, they are not born billionaires, but rather genius leaders of a cult or SSS-level hunters. Unfortunately, for our protagonist, he was not as good as an ordinary NPC from birth. He was kicked out of his home, and even the school kicked him out of his dormitory. If things continue this way, he will soon be expelled from school and become a wandering beggar on the streets. To prevent this, he must change the course of the game. The only way is to graduate from West Virginia University. To ensure a bright future, the first goal is to smoothly graduate from this school. Also, to live a better life than in my previous world. But first and foremost, the important thing now is to solve my clothing and housing situation. With the original owner's reputation, I can't find a job or return to the dormitory. I can only temporarily live in this forest. With just over 10 days left before the new school year begins, I must adapt to a normal learning environment. But I realized my body is weak. Just cutting a few trees tires me out. Luckily, I can use magic, but only a few times. I am so exhausted that I can only boil some bark and chew it. Thirsty, I drink a bit of spring water. That's how I survived until the third day. Ed's face looks like a starving ghost. After a prolonged period of hunger, he concluded that trees can only be used to build houses and not eaten. After strenuous efforts, Ed, exhausted, managed to build a simple wooden tent. At this point, the control panel also reminded him. The system notification said the resting area made of wood has been completed. Your survival skills have improved. Compared to magic, Ed's craftsmanship is superior. That's the most necessary skill at the moment. After much effort, Ed finally enjoyed grilled fish. While preparing to eat, a voice reminded him of an important fact: he is the main character in the game. Princess Panda kicked Ed out of the dormitory in the game Avatar. Ed Ross Taylor was a villain who appeared at the beginning of the game. He used his aristocratic identity to harass the protagonist's sister, who was beaten to death. Ed hates and forges the protagonist's entrance exam, but all of this is concealed by him. However, all of this is exposed by the third princess of the royal family, Panda. When Ed was arrested, he still tried to defend his mistake. After being seen through by the princess' true eyes, he was kicked out of the school dormitory, so he now asks you without hesitation why you are here. Why didn't you let him drop out of school? Why did you do this? Why did you do this? Although Ed also wanted to refute him, he was already starving, but the woman in front of him named Panda could really drive him out of school, so he should not panic now and should stay calm. But when we come to this desolate forest alone, don't you think it's dangerous? It's just that Ed knelt in front of the princess and said, "I am not in danger here, and I want to say thank you." Queen Panda was very surprised because she activated the Eye of Truth and did not find that Ed was lying. Ed's Ross Taylor family is a very powerful and economically powerful family in this country, but they are still abusing their power. They often exploit commoners and even use them for various crazy experiments, ultimately leading to the entire clan being punished, with all members of the clan either exterminated or imprisoned. However, Ed was expelled from the clan, which is why he can now be honest without having to lie to convince Panda. If expelled from school, the game will end. From the game Martial Knight Mac the opens a reason why Panda is here, which is that he must pass the class classification exam of Professor Crest. The class classification exam of Professor Crest is very difficult, and the talented Princess Panda surely wants to enter Class A. Are you saying something interesting? But if you don't have my help, you definitely won't be able to get into Class A. Of course, if I lie, you can let me skip school anytime. Ed then tells him that going southeast of the forest by the lake, there is an island. Under a tree on that island, there is a gift I gave you. Huang looks at the magic gem in Edrose Taylor's hand 3 days ago. Certainly a complete scammer, but Edrose Taylor just now is completely different. It's only seen the professor request everyone to present a common magic gem. Everyone was assigned to Class F and found a smaller magic gem that only points to Class A. Currently, only 3 people have found that smaller magic gem: Jigs and Rotel, and the one who found the rarest magic gem is the talented Princess Panda. Ed uses a rough fishing rod along with a tree branch to make a fishing rod and catch fish. During this time, Ed recalls that Princess Panda's mother has broken all flattery since childhood, increasing observation skills. Ed has no choice but to provide him with true information, but this can also lead to even more chaotic situations. Princess Panda, a strong-willed person, will become a future queen, but that only happens after he is assigned to Class F in the game. If not assigned to Class F to perfect his character, will there be a future queen or not? Currently, although not skipping school, all the key information in the game is useless. At this point, Ed still doesn't know that Princess Panda has her eye on him. The man who loves to play games has turned into a disaster villain character in the game. Wanting a normal peaceful life but being targeted by Huang. At this point, Ed still doesn't know that Princess Pina has her eye on him. The man who loves to play games suddenly becomes a tragic villain character in the game. Wanting a normal life but asked by Pina. Even the most beautiful and powerful girl in the game world wants to compete with him. Today is the opening day of Swinia School, the first day of school that almost got him expelled. It turns out it was because the principal met him. Luckily, Pina didn't badmouth him. He is also hindered by Pina and Rother because next to Elka is a second-year student. Let's believe in him a little. At this point, a student from the library tells Elka and a second-year student that they're still in there. Hearing Elka being called by name, Jigs eagerly goes to ask for details and believes that Elka is weak. After confirming, Jigs decides to go save Elka on his own. Pina and Rother prevent Jigs and ask him to calm down. Besides Elka, there is still a second-year student they need to trust. When the student from the library suddenly becomes knowledgeable, Jigs captures him and interrogates him about what secrets he is holding. Under Jigs' pressure, he finally reveals. As long as he doesn't deviate from the original storyline of the game, he will succeed. To feed himself, Ed can only hunt in the forest. At this time, a girl is reading a book under a tree. He is a genius, little god little Jenica Pilaf, a second-year student. At first, Ed wants to stay away from her. But Jenica approached and talked to Ed. After introducing herself, Jenica said she often heard Melita talk about Ed doing many things in the forest. Melita is the forest guardian. In fact, Ed has cut down many trees and hunted many small animals. Facing Jenica's approach, Ed blushed and blurted out without thinking, "That wolf is very easygoing." Jenica opens her hand to display the soul he just signed. If he wants to improve his relationship with Jenica, he only needs to cooperate with her now. If you want to get along well with Jenica, just cooperate with him. Ed directly expressed that he didn't see the spirit and instead wanted to go hunting, then turned around and left. However, only by staying true to the original storyline can he soon know the intelligence in the original. Jenica Pilaf is a very important main character in the story, and she is also a person not allowed to approach immediately after Ed leaves. Jenica talks about the spirit of Melilda behind him, and he immediately talks to someone similar to him. "It's strange, he said he couldn't see you but knew who you are. I was friendly to him, but he kept avoiding me. From now on, I must understand him better." The forest where Ed lives is far from the school. Every day he has to leave early in the morning to make it to school on time. The daily commute has enhanced Ed's abilities. To earn a scholarship, Ed studies hard. When he gets home from school, he starts doing laundry, cooking, and ends up sleeping only 4 hours a day. But what's even more frustrating is, Nee keeps chasing him every day. Ed couldn't take it anymore and directly asked, "How long will you follow me? You don't know who I am. I am Ed Rose Taylor, the top swindler." But that's just how others perceive you, not reality. Nee is like that, appearing innocent on the outside but actually strong and determined. Ed knows he can't joke around with him because Nee is the final boss of the first chapter. Although Nee is the only one who smiles at Ed, he can only do so. "That's the only way. Do you see me wandering around? Can you lend me some money?" Hearing this, Nee immediately said bluntly, although Nee is excellent and receives a scholarship every year, he is so poor that if he doesn't win a scholarship, he can't pay tuition. Nee apologized and left. After 3 days like that, although Ed felt uncomfortable, he didn't deviate from the original storyline. That day, when Ed returned to his tent after hunting, he saw a character more important than Nee. A character with a more complex storyline, Lucy Merrill, the strongest person on the Green Continent. Ed completely didn't understand why he was sleeping here. He only saw him pointing behind Ed, the giant wolf who always talks to you. "I hope you will save Nee someday." In the game, the main character failed because of a piece of meat. Princess Pina, who was supposed to enter Class F, entered Class A. Nee, as the villain boss, seems to pay attention to this, completely contrary to the original game's storyline. Lucy Merrill had just pointed out that there was a giant wolf who always talks to Ed. The soul of the great forest protector hopes that Ed will save Nee someday. For this request, Ed will have to follow a lonely path. That's a story for later. After Lucy finished telling the story, she fell asleep. He used 5 or 6 advanced magic spells for 2 consecutive days to fly to Ed's tent. It can be said that he is a genius. Just as he avoided Nee, Lucy arrived. He couldn't let him sleep around here every day. Deviating from the original storyline in the future is just a matter of time. The most annoying thing is the trap Lucy ate the meat on that he couldn't bear. For Ed, who had surpassed the original storyline, driving Lucy away wasn't difficult. At that moment, Ed's drawing style changed. "Just back, there was a servant always looking for you." Hearing this, Lucy no longer wanted to eat the meat and said straightforwardly. Then disappeared like a flash. to avoid the servants who resembled the one who took care of Lucy every day. Ed intended to continue living comfortably like that every day until the day of fighting and cooperating in internships. Fighting and cooperating in internships is actually facing a simulation. To avoid injuries, everyone has to use simulated weapons. Even banning the use of powerful magic and drugs. Those involved in this team have many main characters: the beloved Princess Penia, the golden daughter Loader Giggs, the tree. Even the use of great magic and powerful drugs is prohibited. There are many protagonists participating in this team competition, including beloved Princess Penna, Golden Daughter, and Lotus Performance Tree. In ancient history, Jinling had lazy Nika Lucy and gloomy Clevelius. The most important thing was the sunshine on the sword of the game protagonist, but as Ted knew the outcome, he completely didn't care who won or lost. Most of the winners are first-year students, except for one person with 10 cards, Nika. A high school wizard. Ed didn't know he was borrowing money from him and approached him. He greeted Ed again and started the competition. "Don't you care? You don't want to know your opponent?" Upon hearing this, Ed wore a surprised face. In the initial game, Ed dropped out of school and couldn't help but look at the list. Oh my goodness, his opponent is Princess Penia. Now the speaker is ringing with orders from Terry McCullen and Lucy Merrill. Ready. Finally, it's Terry's turn. He must witness the protagonist's first victory. The protagonist's first victory, after all, as a player controlling Terry's body. There is no simple world line to control Ed from the tragic ending of the game to the true ending. Now the speaker is ringing. Please let Lucy Merrill come on stage. Upon hearing this, Ed starts looking for Lucy, who is lazy behind the scenes. What's important is that the protagonist wins for the first time. Lie down, it can't end like this. Lucy asked if she had any meat she had eaten before. She was hungry. Ed asked Lucy to go to the battlefield before everything else was easy. In Swordsman, the protagonist bears the fate of a swordsman. Terry defeated Lucy for the first time. Facing Terry with Lucy's magic sword, upgrade Lucy to use the final magic Lorelei. Despite being defeated, Terry was still not defeated. In the end, using magic violated the rules and led to Lucy's disqualification from the competition. Terry became the first person to defeat Lucy. Merrill is seen of Lucy in the game, walking towards the court with a tired expression. The game officially begins. Terry punches and kicks Lucy. Terry was hit by this magic on the wall, and now everyone thinks this game is over. Terry McLaughlin's life is like a painful series, a college dropout from a farmer's family who never achieved good grades in school, and no one recognizes his power. Now everyone thinks that the game is over. Only artist Ed thinks that Terry Dragonsong just saw him lying on the sword, continuing to attack Lucy, without following the game's plot and using electric magic. A wind dragon rises like a tornado, sweeping the entire stadium. This wind magic took Terry to the height of 3 floors, and Ed couldn't say anything amazing. It was completely beyond the plot of the game. Amidst everyone's cheers, Lucy Merrill won the game. The strongest person in the world, Lucy Merrill, is actually protected by the spirit of the storm. After a storm, the protagonist Terry is blown to Ed, who is 3 stories tall, despite Lucy's request to eat meat. The main reason is that the soul of Thunderstorm signed a contract with Lucy, the strongest person in the world. With the support of the high-level soul in the original work, they did not meet. Their relationship started from Ed's tent, and now the speaker is playing in the next game. Ed Ross Taylor dueled with Penia Allows Kalor in search of Terry. He did not hear Princess Penia's words. He must restore Terry's confidence. He is responsible for this because he created everything. Everything may seem meaningless, but it's always better than doing nothing. Tai Lee Mac Lee School will have many challenges ahead. This time, you did very well, it's just a pity that the opponent was too strong. Tai Lee Ni is not chosen by the gods. We can't give up like this. If the protagonist of the game falls into despair, the last person to be pitiful will surely be the supporting roles like myself. Distant classmates all think Ed is a demon who abuses his noble status to oppress the common people. At this point, they are still mocking Tai Lee. Emperor Clore was the first to discover that Penia possesses the true eye, which sees through deceit and schemes. In the palace, witnessing both open and secret struggles, he realized their dirty intentions. But he had to pretend not to know. This is Princess Penia, noble and gentle, but her true eye cannot see through the man in front of her, Edrose Tyler. Finally, the battle between Ed and Penia has come to Ed's realization. It's not about winning or losing. Penia wants to end this battle with Ed based on analyzing what magic Ed will use to defend. She focuses her strength and unleashes water magic, which definitely hits Ed, causing him to be thrown out of the ring. Penia is very surprised at such an exciting battle that she won. The audience only knows that this battle is not as good as Ty Lee. Ed stands up, bows, thanking Princess Pinia's guidance, still unable to understand the man in front of him. From start to finish, Ed avoids her gaze. For Ed now, it's not about competing with Pinia, he also needs to be careful not to affect the original setup. In fact, not only does it affect, but it has even changed the world. After the battle, Ed rushes to find Ty Lee. Princess Pinia, panting, finds Ed and cautions him. What if it's a battle? Thank you for his guidance. Ed refuses her guidance. I have studied hard every day. And to prevent the cunning merchants from swallowing the school. Professor Crest always shows anger, with the people around murmuring about etiquette. Who are you that makes my mind so complicated? Ed gently places his hand on Pinia's shoulder, asking her to take a deep breath before calming down. Blushing and covering her face, Pinia urges Ed to forget what he just said. Wanting to run to find Ty Lee, but seeing Pinia like that. Pinia reminds Ed that this is not a palace but the Western Vin Na Academy. Even she can relax sometimes. For the first time, Princess Pinia, who can see through countless people, is seen through by others. Although her prediction was completely wrong, the dirtiness of the Rosettler family is real. To avoid affecting the original plot, Ed can only pretend not to know. So why did she encourage Ty Lee to drop out and applaud for Ty Lee? This question is too profound, and Ed inevitably has to leave the line of sight by trying to improve people's impression of Mr. Pinia, asking Ed to look into her eyes and answer the last question. Despite being seen through by the real eyes, Ed insists that this is true. The two of them had an argument, but neither of them refused. Pinia finally felt Ed's gaze always looking towards the door, and she decided to let go of his hand. Seeing Pinia troubled by countless problems, Ed reminded her that this was not a palace, but the Russian Shirong Academy. Although it took too much time, we still managed to find Talion in the end. To comfort Terry, I don't know what to say. Elliot Triss stood in front of Terry. Although his eyes were filled with tears and looked like a weak image, he still spoke up and demanded that Ed not harass Terry. Now, he is even more surprised that Ed has not been fired. He stands in front of Ella, the heroine, to protect you. No matter how powerful the opponent is, he is firmly determined to fight. Now is the time to officially become the swordsman Terry McCroy. He could definitely stand up several times until Ed regained his confidence. He no longer had a reason to stay here, only leaving a handsome photo of the protagonist and female led in the game Hidden Reputation, known as the second-generation super-rich gold princess. He spent 2 hours with Ed, but Ed didn't want to contact him because he was told during the game that he was a novice assassin. It wasn't until Terry regained his confidence that Ed breathed a sigh of relief. Ed believed that he only needed to consider how to survive. Anyway, Terry would save the world, leaving only the protagonist and the female protagonist joking on their way back to the training ground. A loud noise came from the front, and then flames tore through the sky. This is a battle between Princess Rother of Gold and Wonder Woman Shanika Paloff, a battle between ice and fire, all using ultimate magic. Although the process of this battle is different from the original, it is ultimately a destined protagonist Terry and the female lead. You must carefully observe, this is the first challenge you will face. The last boss, Shanika Paloff, has now received praise in the crowd. Only Shanika has defeated a freshman student and maintained the glory of her sophomore year. Shanika's gaze passes through the crowd and sees Rottle being pulled up. This made Shanika unable to control her own strength and fall into self-blame. Now someone screams that Shanika is our self-esteem. This planted a seed in Shanika. Soon, he will no longer be seen near the campsite. It's just related to the protagonist of the original work, and nothing good happened. That's Ed's idea. After an undisturbed collaborative internship, the protagonist Ed focuses on learning and survival. After the fishnet was built, Ed's dietary problems were solved. Due to long-term survival training, Ed had a perfect body. A girl covered his eyes and didn't notice. Now Ed realized that Sinica was blushing and asked him what to do. Shanika replied that it was like a secret base. She enjoyed the feeling of adventure. Seeing her sad, Ed guessed the question. Shanika told Ed that she had hurt a colleague during the collaborative internship. Ed doesn't know how to deal with Shanika. She can only give advice from a third perspective. If she feels uncomfortable, please apologize to him. Shanika breathes a sigh of relief. Shinika's friends always defend her and advise her not to apologize. Although Shanika seemed relaxed, these suggestions made her even more uncomfortable, so she went to find Ed, who never showed favoritism towards her. Despite appearing foolish, Shanika understood that thanks to his debt last time, Ed showed a reluctance to let her get close. Although it may seem foolish, Sinica understands that last time, thanks to Ed, she showed a reluctance to let her get close, which made her feel safer in this world. Although she looks like a silly and sweet Yenka, she also understands that the last time she borrowed money from him was when Ed politely told him not to get close to her, which actually made Yenka feel more at ease. If in this world, just having everyone like me would be enough, in a few days One Key had gone crazy running away because something big had happened. Although the Fallen Holy Sword is a great work, the number of players in the end is very small because from the beginning, they have had many unpleasant experiences like rescuing a female friend who was attacked at an event. So, upon discovering Hong Kim Nun's order, she will arrange for people to assassinate the main character Tai Li. The ending is death after chasing and killing monsters in the plot. If not cooperating with Hong Kim Nun, the female lead Isla will fall off the cliff. If Tai Li saves Isla from falling off the cliff, it will disrupt the plans of Hong Kim Nun and Nai Nika. The final battle ends up being burned to death in the end. One Key still runs away regardless. Finally, he is stopped. He is one of the 4 female leads of the Fallen Holy Sword, the only daughter of the super-rich tycoon Et Kai Hen Rote Kai Hen, nicknamed Hong Kim Nun, the predecessor of One Key. He wants to buy 2 hours of my time as the boss in the game. Nai Nika Pai Lo Fa easily demonstrates his abilities knowing about the darkness of this world. Nai Nika can easily dismiss the skilled assassin Rote Kai Hen with just a few words. Rote Kai Hen says he wants to buy One Key for 2 hours. One Key knows this girl Rote is the hidden female lead who can be won over. Though initially seen as a villain, she is actually a girl in pain and loneliness. Players will sooner or later stand by her. One Key decides to turn away. He does not want to follow Rote's tune into the main storyline. This makes Rote cling even more. One Key is first praised for his efforts to learn in a difficult environment. Of course, One Key is not fooled by that until he takes out 3 coins and goes straight to the point. His relationship with the senior Nai Nika is good. Right, if he introduces Nai Nika and me as friends, it's just a deposit. Just reaching the level of Hong Kim Nun can buy relationships with money. Right, knowing One Key is short of money, Rote directly holds and puts the money into One Key's pocket. Rote relies on intuition and has already discovered that in the future, he will conflict with Hong Nu Pei Nia. Having taken over the school leadership position earlier, he had bought himself a teammate with money. Knowing everything, One Key doesn't react, just wants to shake hands with Rote. He thinks One Key, from a wealthy class, surely doesn't adapt to current life theories. People like that can sell their family just for money, even their self-esteem, but reality and theory are not the same. One Key once again refuses when the two shake hands. One Key returns the money to Rote and leaves. Having that money would certainly reduce the pressure. He couldn't imagine what would happen if Nai Nika and the assassin were put together. It would be terrible to avoid the possibility of ruining the original plot. One Key's attitude makes Rote even more interested. On the same day, One Key's refusal does not deter Rote. He decides to go find Nai Nika. He deliberately wears a long dress with long hair, looking like a weak girl, and reveals a wound from before being attacked by Nai Nika. Apologizing for using magic in the last cooperative training session, he wants to see the true power of the second-grade student. Nai Nika just coldly asks Rote if the business deal is not over yet. Rote laughs and answers, "It's almost finished, don't worry. I think Nai Nika is naive like that just by using the reason she was beaten by you. I can control." But the next sentence shocks him. "How about your conversation with One Key?" Usually, I try not to discuss other people's privacy, but spirits are quite impulsive, meaning they know most of the content of the conversation between the two of you. Right, although you used money to befriend me, it touched me a lot. But he really can't buy the money. He said he's still busy signing High Soul Rother, and he has adjusted his evaluation of Jenica. He's not someone who doesn't consider the world. Finally, I apologize for the serious harm I caused you last time. I really hope you can recover as soon as possible. Only Rother is in Jenica's room, with a blurry and dark face, recalling what just happened. It's dangerous, but everyone hopes so. This is a wonderful thing. In the big forest, Ed dried his clothes and prepared to lie on the ground to rest. A maid with a basket came, and it was the maid who drove him out of the Bermania dormitory. The maid said that she often heard Jenica talk about Ed, but didn't know that he was living this kind of life. At least there had been a change. This was a good thing. Ed's gaze always stayed in the basket of the maid Bophiris. Every maid in Porphyris is an excellent maid, in a basket of high-quality materials collected from the big forest. This information is not in the book. Recalling Bermania does not affect the plot. Ed thinks he can establish a good relationship with her. The Belmania maid gave a detailed introduction to edible herbal mushrooms and fruits. In the following time, Ed made a fishing net and stored more baked goods. The food problem was completely solved. Knowing only 2 basic spells, her ability to use them rapidly improved, just like brewing tea. The maid taught Ed to make a cup of fragrant herbal tea, combining wind magic and fire magic. I clearly feel that my work efficiency has improved. I am drinking tea. I loudly say that I like this kind of life. Now, a shooting star is crossing the sky, and the more it looks, the worse it becomes. I always feel that it is close to me and is about to fall. Even Ed was subjected to a terrifying shock. When he woke up, he discovered something even more terrifying: why his tent had collapsed, just waiting for the smoke to disappear, and a girl appeared in front of him. It was Lucy Merrill who ultimately began Glayska's final battle defense mission, as Jenica Pilaf summoned a failed dark elf, resulting in a wild elf. Not long ago, she was also controlled by the elves and became the boss. Ed's house fell from the sky by Lucy. You were still saying you were going to die. You were almost dead. Ed knew very well that the person in front of you was the most powerful wizard in the world. Lucy said you were almost being served by Bellman. As usual, Bellman has become more sensitive lately. She clenched her fist harder than usual and approached you. If you were hit, it would hurt. You would immediately run away with quick movements. Lucy asked Ed if he still had meat. Ed angrily slapped her head. This person lived a luxurious life. Lucy held her head tightly, screaming in pain. Ed didn't know she didn't have magic protection. Now Lucy said her magic was gone. Listening to Lucy say her magic was gone, Ed felt ready. This is for revenge on my house. This is Birmania. Lucy's good maid laments. Lucy's crying echoes in the woods. Now in the library, Ed is searching for information to build a stronger wooden house. Ed apologizes immediately. I am sorry, I didn't notice the closing time. Please answer politely. It's okay. It's the first time I've seen someone who works hard like a senior. I also want to become a senior. The person in front of me is a first-grade student named Elkis. Ed immediately apologized because he didn't notice the closing time. He politely replied, it's okay. This was the first time he had seen someone who worked hard to learn like his predecessor. He also wanted to become his predecessor. As a library intern, Elka's sparkling eyes hinted to Ed to quickly speak his name. Ed turned and replied that he was Edrose Tyler. Elka, shocked by this, her face changed. This was the expected reaction as the previous bad reputation had not disappeared. Elka, after waking up, immediately smiled and said that unlike the rumors, the senior had finished reading a book about an element he didn't understand in a few days. The rumors about the senior's bad temper were not wrong. Seemingly unable to believe that she also knew some people like the senior, I will cheer for you, Elka said before preparing to leave. At this moment, a strong earthquake occurred, causing both of them to stand firm. The bookshelf was also pushed towards Elka. Meanwhile, a loud echoing sound invaded the land. The defensive battle of Graska began. Tellis group gathered at the temporary headquarters of the student union. Just 2 hours ago, an unforeseen disaster had occurred. The main heroine, Ira, said, I read in that magic book, it is the most powerful summoning movement of Graskin's dark summoning vein. Princess Peenia continued, the one who can summon the most powerful soul of Graskin is only one person who has the strongest perception. And will also become the enemy of everyone. That is the one who causes the madness of the dark soul, second-year student Jenica Paylovov. While everyone didn't know what to do, Peenia thought that now was not the time to sit and wait. The school's defense layer had been destroyed. It's just a matter of time. At this point, the main character of the game, Telly, said that if Graskin successfully summons, more people will die. They had to join the student union immediately. The captain of the Royal Guard believed that the situation outside must have been known. They will surely arrange it soon. The Royal Guard and teachers will come out to resolve it. Second-year Elvira stood by, saying that the principal is not here now. If everyone works together to defeat the high-level soul, it is not impossible. Dark Sankoval beside. Immediately opposed, everyone needs to destroy many extremely high souls. They have to go inside to destroy Jenica. Not only that, they also have to face 2 high-level souls going crazy right in front of the Fire Soul Taka. Along with the Dark Soul Belazbeer. This is suicidal behavior. Rotel doubted that even a second-year student could not summon so many souls and also summon Graskin. Ira explained that most of it is the power of the Dark Soul Belazbeer. Jenica only makes them present from the middle of their eyebrows. The reason the history of the soul must remain pure. At present, no one knows how Belazbeer ruled. Moreover, Jenica understands the soul better than anyone else. When Giggs continued to say that those things are no longer important, right? What is more important is the current course of action. Only one person can make that decision, that is Princess Peenia. Seeing the situation becoming tense, everyone is waiting for their decision. The man appeared again to rest occasionally. If you can really rest, that's great. Immediately, Peenia ordered him and his guards along with class leaders and class of students to resolve Jenica. Everyone else, be prepared. So he has to take responsibility alone. At this point, a student came to report. Ophila's house and the drug reporting agency had decided to close and wait for rescue. They couldn't meet with them. The head girl expressed that if there were no other students, there could only be a few people acting. At this point, a student who came out of the library told LK and a second-year student that they were still inside. When LK called Giggs, he was happy to find him and asked for details. He thought LK was weak and decided to rescue LK Panda himself. Rother stopped Giggs and calmed him down. LK also had a second-year student by his side, and they could trust him. Believe him a little. When the students in the library began to know more than Giggs, Giggs caught him and asked him what he had hidden under Giggs' pressure. He finally said that it was Edrastair. Everyone heard LK's voice, and everyone was changing. Giggs became increasingly determined to save LK Panda and stop him from asking him to believe in Ed. Everyone believed that it was impossible to believe that person, even Panda became silent. Giggs seized the opportunity and rushed outside shouting, "If anyone dares to harm LK's hair, he will beat them to pieces." The people standing around Elsa were still tightly closing the curtains, obviously to block the wild soul Giggs' sight. Giggs found a piece of paper left by Ed and asked Elsa not to panic when he woke up, to protect himself. When the ground shook, the entire bookshelf collapsed. LK Ed stood on the bookshelf and saw the recall marks outside the window. He decided to announce the recall in Glaskin to avoid changing the plot. Ed needed to take action. Cade ultimately decided to add the main plot, and Britain found Princess Penia and other people who volunteered to join them. Soon after, Giggs frantically searched for Elka McCaggs. Born into an unruly royal family, Giggs was a wild man from the north. From a very young age, he was abandoned by his family rather than literate. He first learned to hunt. People say Giggs is a wild man from the north, like a wolf walking on 2 feet. Only when LK talked to Giggs and smiled at him, did he understand his loneliness. LK's family regarded Giggs as a part of their family. But in order to protect LK, you can go back to the beast side. You have heard many rumors about Ed, from insulting the princess to harassing lower-class people. You are determined to protect LK Giggs. It was found outside the library that Ed was injured. He directly asked Ed where LK was. From his answer, it seemed that Giggs knew LK was in the library. Giggs ran in and found LK very safe. He saw a bookshelf that even adults couldn't lift. Even the curtains were closed, obviously to block the elf's sight. Giggs found a sentence on the wall so that he wouldn't panic when he woke up. After dawn, everything will come to an end, and the blood on the ground is obviously not Elka's, but to protect Elka from harm. Due to the shaking of the ground, the entire bookshelf collapsed on Elka Ed, blocking the bookshelf. Seeing the call outside the window, he judged that Glaskin punishment station had opened Ed, and that action must be taken if the plot does not change. He first blocked the door with a bookshelf to prevent wild souls from entering. The reason why Jenica stands out is because she has a very strong understanding and perception of the soul, and being able to see the soul is a talent. For those who cannot see the soul, it is impossible to enhance the adaptation to the soul, because Jenica summoned the material soul, and Ed had no intention of giving up after experiencing a huge attack. The fire magic has increased to level 12, while the fairy magic has reached level 7. If the fairy magic surpasses level 15, it can form a contract with the fairy. By continuing this effort, the storyline may be altered. Giggs, carrying Elka, discovers Ed. Why did he come here? Ed's appearance seems vague. Could it be because of his injuries that the other party sympathizes with him? Giggs recounts that he understands Ed a little because he has always been that way. Giggs bows in gratitude towards Ed. Expressing gratitude towards Ed for a favor, Ed also remembers Elka regarding Giggs as Elka's lover. Since the beginning of the game, Giggs has always played the role of Terry's main character's friend. Ed asks Giggs if he is the one who abandoned the student union headquarters. Once Elka's safety is confirmed, quickly proceed with the necessary tasks. Just help Terry with what he says, and everything will be resolved. Terry McCloy Mac has been too dismissive. Giggs mentions that he has never spoken to Terry. Ed explains that it is not a matter of trust. Only he can break through the high-level Firestone's defense. Giggs thanks once again before leaving. Ed thinks it's because he gave advice. He can take a break. The storyline will develop as in the original. Suddenly remembering Giggs saying he has never spoken to Terry, according to the initial setup, the two learn how to wield elemental magic in battle. And Giggs acknowledges them, making them friends. This may be due to the Lascant punitive battle happening earlier than in the original. This means that Giggs and Terry are not friends. Terry has not yet learned how to wield elemental magic. This means the current main team's defense cannot be broken. The storyline has been messed up. Giggs apologizes to everyone and promises to make amends. The princess mentions for the first time that the main team has invaded Jenika's room, failing, with consequences for anyone who does. The royal guard captain is injured and tells them to go ahead, then follows. Once again, the princess requests the main team to withdraw the punitive order. The princess refuses once more. This time, even though the retreat was successful, Claire's strategy was lost. The princess asks if there is a way to defeat him before. Looking at everyone, they say they don't have time to reach Taka, and the summoning ritual will be completed immediately. At that moment, a person appears before everyone. The female lead Isla immediately stands before Terry, even surprising the princess with his appearance. Although it's a situation he wants to avoid the most. But it's also unavoidable. He is Edward Rose Taylor. He proposes to split the main team into 2 groups, leading one himself. Now Baird begins to intervene in the game's storyline. This man even brings the cute girl. After the girl breaks the defense, he suggests harvesting the final blood, even cutting off the final blow. Just as Ed proposes to split the main team into 2 groups, everyone is surprised. At this point, the shadow of Nankelville interrupts Ed. Jiggs prevents the ominous man from Ed to continue talking about solving Jenica, which can only be avoided through the Firestone Takan. Everyone has tried but no one can break Takan's defense. Therefore, a group of people is needed to distract Takan. Rotel questions the difference between fire magic and training for real combat. If the distraction of Takan fails, they will face both high-level magics. The risk is too great. Ed explains that defeating Takan of Jenica is all that matters, no need to worry. The issue is who will distract Takan. This action is simply seeking death. When no one wants to do this, the main character Terry stands up but is rejected by Ed. Tai Luke believes that if someone has to sacrifice, then let it be him. Ed tells him that there is no need to choose anyone to sacrifice, just find a way to attract and obstruct. Ed then suggests that he, Lo Tu, and Amtram Nam Clavier will go. Amtram Nam Clavier questions why many people want to choose him, as he himself does not want to die. Even Lo Tu starts to hesitate. Ed can only comfort them by saying he has a way to obstruct Hua Tin, as time is running out. At this point, Princess Penia decides to split into 2 groups. He, along with Tai Luke, Gia's Elvira, and Aila, will deal with Yen Na Clavier, while Lo Tu and Ed will obstruct Takan. Before leaving, Penia warns them not to let anyone die. Ed tells them that as long as they follow him, based on appearances they will surely win. And so, the 3 of them charge to face Hua Tin. Finally, Ed encouraged Clavier not to worry about Ice City. Although Shen Nan is very scared, he is still the class monitor of 5th grade. It is not difficult to stop Xie Zan as long as he does, even though he was deceived by Princess Penia once before. Now, he is not alone in the battle, still having companions. Thinking about this, Clavier regains his courage. Hua Tin suddenly breathes fire towards him. Clavier turns back, startled, wondering how to obstruct, realizing his 2 teammates have fled. Alone, Clavier stands facing Hua Tin. The friendly Hua Tin appears behind him. Only hearing the loud roar of Hua Tin, Clavier runs as fast as he can, still not forgetting to blame them. Rotel once again questions Ed's plan. Simply sacrificing Clavier is not fair. Ed explains that he is the 5th-year class leader, able to withstand attacks. Don't worry. Ed tells Rotel that to ensure the princess and others can pass through the Yen Na resolution room, he must make a deadly strike against Hua Tin. Hearing the plan, Rotel finds Ed and the rumors too different. Now, Amtram Nam Clavier agilely dodges all of Hua Tin's attacks. Rotel is ready for the final magical strike, breaking the room where Hua Tin is. The princess and companions are speechless. Rotel urges the princess and others to quickly enter. He thinks Ed may have seen when he and Yen Na fought during training using high-level magic, hence why he is responsible for breaking the door. Ed, Rotel, and Tyler are truly intriguing individuals. As Hua Tin becomes alert, Amtram Nam Clavier begins to shout, never forgiving Ed and Rotel, wanting to kill them. Rotel is ready for one final magical strike. Clavier sees his teammates running and apologizes. Rotel releases a common attack, hard to break through Hua Tin's room, but can use strong energy to break the tower. Rotel throws a powerful attack that was prepared before but was immediately destroyed by Hua Tin. Ed then finds Lucy sleeping. Due to the power of Yen Na rising, Bellamia, the maid, always follows Lucy closely. Therefore, Lucy maintains a restrained appearance while sleeping. When she smells something, Lucy immediately opens her eyes, seeing the meat prepared by Ed. Bellamia closely monitors Lucy due to the awakening of Yen Ngas power. Therefore, Lucy always maintains a restrained appearance while sleeping. When she smells something, Lucy immediately opens her eyes, seeing the meat prepared by Ed. Ed filled Lucy's mouth with pieces of meat and prepared to cast a beam of light towards Lucy's back. Poor Lucy didn't know what she was facing. Ed's target for casting was the Tower of Inferno, which was engulfed in flames. Ed was worried if he could throw far enough, but reassured himself that he had trained well, so there shouldn't be a problem. Lucy still had meat in her mouth and flew towards the Tower of Inferno to prepare to attack Rotel and Cleverish. Lucy flew in with tears streaming down her face, crying out, "This is too much, truly too much." This was the decisive moment of victory or defeat for Lucy after being thrown away. She performed a high-level lightning magic. A purple lightning bolt descended from the sky. Illuminating the night sky, Rotel was affected by the lightning and immediately launched a defensive magic. Even Ed was almost pushed back by the thunderstorm of this magic. The high-level Tower of Inferno's power was due to its thick skin. Now his skin had been torn apart by the high-level lightning magic. Any attack could cause fatal damage to him. Ed didn't want to miss this great opportunity and rushed towards the high-level Tower of Inferno. Wanting to deliver the final blow, a resilient disciple had defeated the high-level Tower of Inferno and discovered an unstable element. The main character of the game, Terry, awakened as a knight, defeated Losbel and Glask. Your classmate and Terry's friend, also a source of pride, the teachers believed Terry was the hope of the second year. Unable to bear the pressure from everyone, Nanika was controlled by the dark elf Glaska. Princess Penya and Terry successfully reached Nanika's room. In the room, Nanika was controlled and tried to smile but couldn't. At this point, she was completely controlled by the dark spirit Glaska, unable to make a move. The dark elf Glask began to emit a powerful energy. Terry stood firm at the forefront while Ed was racing against time to make a final move against the Tower of Inferno. The mission would end as the sun rose in the south. Cleverel was still being pursued by the Tower of Inferno. Is it Ted or has Ed arrived? Rotel heard from Cleverel that although Lucy was still safe, it seemed that magic had reached its limit. Rotel explained that he had used all his magic to create 2 ice spikes. But unbelievably, Lucy used a shielding spell to protect herself and rolled around. Ed told Rotel that his head needed to be chopped off to solve the situation. Rotel thought this couldn't be done and decided to confront Cleverel. At this moment, Cleverel was still fleeing, making it impossible. Ed risked his life and asked Rotel to come up with a solution to defeat him. Rotel felt that Ed was gambling with his life. Ed said this wasn't gambling, it was an investment. Rotel smiled because investing was what he was best at. Rather than following the control of Penia, Rotel preferred Ed's arrangement. Rotel thought if Ed had put his life into the game, then he should also put his life into Ed. Ed rushed towards the Tower of Inferno. At this point, the Inferno had become weak but still spewed intense flames. Ed just wanted to get close to the Inferno. Ed accumulated a magical attack. At that moment, a giant arm fell down, narrowly missing Cleverel and causing fear in him. Ed realized immediately. As Glaskin's Dark Soul's right arm, Terry and his team are seen battling against Glaskin's Dark Soul. Despite it not being the most appropriate time, everyone's attention is focused on it. They must continue on their journey. A massive thrust from an ice spike attacks Taken, the Fire Soul. This is Rotel's support. Rotel's timing is impeccable, just like Ed standing beneath Taken, the Fire Soul. This wind strike has been honed by him thousands of times. His strike directly decapitates Taken, the Fire Soul. As the soul is destroyed, the body fades and the system signals that the high-level Fire Soul Taken has been defeated. The windows continuously display enhanced soul perception. Now he can directly contract with the soul. Ed, the one who killed Taken, the Fire Soul, gazes into the distance. The game's main character, Terry, is still battling against Belos Beer. Nothing is seen but thousands of swords cutting through Glaskin's body, which has been fragmented. A loud explosion follows suit. Even Terry is blown away. Ed confirms that the silver-haired boy is indeed Terry. As the final defensive wall shatters, the battle with Glaskin concludes. The sun begins to rise. Ed, Rotel, Clavel and Lucy are all resting under the Rotel tree, mocking everyone. Just reclaiming a life, Ed pays no attention to Rotel's gesture of getting acquainted again. Rotel reaches out and wants to reconnect with Ed. Ed even receives back 3 coins and says he owes someone now. Rotel reaches out to serve and wants to get acquainted with Ed. Ed directly refuses, stating that defeating Taken was Lucy's merit in resolving Belos Beer and Glaskin. And Elvira Hall. Everyone knows they contributed a lot, but he handed all the credit to someone else. No one was waiting for Ed to be ashamed of himself. Jiggs, Ed's protector, begins to argue with Elvira to not affect the game's plot. While Ed is confused, Terry bows, thanking Ed and saying he owes him a favor. Clarewell advises against thanking him, as one day he may be stabbed in the back, and Pena Geg or Rottle will silence him. Claire can only shiver as Queen Pena nominates Ed to the student council. Ed directly declines, explaining that killing Tarshan was Lucy's merit. And Gra can, too Alval Rojo can, and everyone knows they did a lot, but he yielded credit to someone else, right? Giggs, who spoke with Ed, argued with Elvira to not affect the game's plot. Only able to keep their distance, but when Ed sees this scene, he still feels warm inside as he's seen it many times before. Everyone plays a role in this world, solving diverse issues, facing difficulties, and moving forward constantly. There's Ira, always supporting him to become stronger. Future Queen Pena rises, Jiggs seeks to live in civilized life, Clavel restores confidence, and Elvira understands life. Finally, Rother is submerged in gold. They all ponder their own lives, bearing their destinies. And the culmination of this destiny is the cup of victory. Ed no longer belongs here, he has vanished, seeking something amidst this chaos, where the story concludes, where Lucy often sleeps. A student exits the library, stating that Elka the librarian and a sophomore student are still inside. Hearing the library call out Elka's name, Giggs eagerly searches for him to inquire further. He believes Elka is weak and unable to protect himself. Confirmed by Giggs, he decides to rescue Elka himself. Queen Pena and Rotel prevent Giggs, urging him to calm down. Another sophomore student is also around Elka. Just one sentence from Do was enough to make Pena fall in love with him and also capture the hearts of many celestial maidens. Shortly after, a duck found Pena in the rubble. A duck remembered his conversation with Luig Nian about why Pena took Luig Nian away. Speaking of finding Pena at her place. Seeing many thank you cards and gifts of encouragement hanging on the wall, those cards weighed heavily on Pena's heart. Pena accepted all the gifts from everyone and had to respond to each person's desires. The overwhelming pressure caused Pena to be caught by Bok Lo Tik Bai in a vulnerable moment, leading to being controlled. But this only happened after a month, perhaps due to Hule's failure against Lo Tik, leading to Tai Li fans. The main reason why Ruth easily defeated Kaylee as a fan of Yanyi card was because she signed the fairy Mai Li, and Mai Li and Ruth's main meeting place was in the aid camp. Everything was because of aid. At this moment, Pena said that he had been sleeping here without anyone noticing. Pena also did not expect a duck to be the first to find her. At this point, he just wanted to be alone for a while, as he would cry loudly. A duck also remembered Makla saying that he had to save Pena. Makla seemed to know that Pena would end up in this situation. Only someone who loves and keeps their distance from him to sign a contract with a high-ranking celestial maiden like Pena faced the control of the dark celestial maiden, ruining the institution. Pena stayed up late studying and training, had to meet the expectations of friends and teachers. A smile on his face, but trying to live up to everyone's expectations. The beautiful process of failure is also beautiful. Facing such despair, a duck could only comfort her. A simple sentence was enough to show Pena's strength. The main character in the game on stage was encouraged by everyone's praise, but behind the stage was darkness. That is also the main character under the light of the screen that cannot be seen. Boss leaves the stage, a duck saw everything he couldn't see before. That was the celestial maiden that only then Su could see. In Pena's cry, the celestial maiden appeared around him, thanks to a duck's perception and understanding of the celestial maiden reaching level 10. Both fire elves were interested in aid in the summer, and the advanced fairy Miley was also interested in aid. 10 days later, at the Yanyi Academy, she admitted her crimes and was ready to accept any punishment. But the professor and friends all defended Pena. Second time in court, Pena also declared not to prosecute Pena for attacking the royal family, and proved he was controlled by the dark celestial maiden, not intending to cause the incident. Because all the servants were locked up by the head servant in the student meeting room in the dormitory, there was still a debate about the situation. Because the magic that originally protected the students is now being used by the head servant to detain the students. Everything happened according to the original script. Of course, Rottle also proposed that his Chamber of Commerce sell school supplies at the school, reducing the tax rate by half. Finally, Jenica was stripped of all the honors she had achieved in the next semester. Starting at Ophila's dormitory, the ban on privileges prohibited 10 days of residency, suspended 20 days of study, luckily not expelled. Students and professors were all excited, tears streaming down their faces. At this time, Jenica seemed very reluctant, professionally, for Jenica. Preparing a series of snacks and drinks, negotiating without mentioning Glaskin's affairs and Deep NY Tap's unhappy story. At this time, Deep NY Tap's smiling face blushed, asking if there was anything different between liking and loving. Both classmates were amazed at why Deep NY Tap asked such a question. Nika explains that a friend of his dreamed of a princess weaving a wreath in a sea of flowers. Eventually, he waited for his prince to appear and placed the wreath on his prince. After that, the two lived happily in the sea of flowers. Listening to Nika recount the story of this friend, both of them knew that Nika was forbidden to go out for 10 days, so he couldn't meet his friends. Classmates continued to ask if the friend had said anything else. Nika looked puzzled as he recounted that when the friend was alone in the room, he still remembered the face of that person. Another friend heard this, immediately made an excuse to escape. Nika, the naive person, waved goodbye, but the friend was scared. This is related to Nika and Paylov's love issue. If not handled carefully, this matter could spread throughout the school and leave a scar in his heart. First, tell Nika that there's no need to overthink. Liking or hating someone is uncontrollable. Speaking frankly to both yourself and the other person is good. But if you deliberately tell the story like this to both of you and your friends, there will be some negative comments. Nika immediately agreed. After being explained, Nika left with a happy mood. Classmates wondered about themselves, finally stopping the spread of messages. Bowed their heads on the table, praising themselves. Did very well. At this time, Ed was exempted from tuition by Pena, saving an additional expense. With that gold, he bought a bunch of equipment. He saw Nika, who was blushing at the time, playing with his fingers. Ed welcomed him, made Nika startled and then hurriedly ran behind a tree. He remembered the friend's reminder to be straightforward in feelings. He still couldn't face Ed, so he ran away. Ed thought that even a kind person like Nika didn't want to contact him, which hurt him. Without much thought, Ed took the available tools to work. He prepared to build a wooden house for himself. On the first day, he chose a suitable location to build the house and filled the ground. On the third day, he prepared construction materials. On the sixth day, due to final exams, he temporarily stopped construction. Special purpose, Nika always avoided Ed. Nika's friends Clara and Anise looked disdainful, asking Ed to leave Nika. By the 18th day, the construction materials were almost ready. On the 20th day, the holiday began, and the frame of the house was also completed. Special purpose when checking the trap, Lucy was found sleeping on it. Despite wearing a mask, they had to cancel the hunt. On the 27th day, the servant Belmania divided some mushrooms and herbs and also inquired about Nika's situation. Ed told about Nika hating him. Belmania didn't understand. On the 30th day, one side of Ed's house frame collapsed. At the cookie shop, he met Nika's group, but he covered his eyes and ran. His friends guessed that Nika liked Ed. On the 31st day, Jigs came to help Ed build the house, saying that the boy Terry was very good. On the 45th day, Ed finally completed the construction of the house. Currently, there was no floor, wallpaper, or furniture, but there were walls and a roof. After closing the door, no longer heard the birds singing. Ed finally had a wooden house for himself. While Ed enjoyed this moment, Nika also determined to do something. The man who entered the gaming world as a cool boy with no influence now became a small boss on the dormitory floor. Soon after, Ed lay in his wooden house, almost breathless, only hearing strange noises from the roof. Ed discovered Lucy hanging on the roof like a cat. When Nika waved to him, Ed had many suspicions. Nika was full of cold sweat. Remembering the advice of the servant Belmania that seeing Ed's house, which looked quite sturdy, he did not expect Ed to have talent in this field. When Nika waved to him, Ed had many questions. Nika recalled Belmania's suggestion, sweating profusely, and saw that Ed's house looked very certain. He didn't expect that Ed also had talent in this area. Of course, it's impossible to contain the curiosity to explore the inside of Yonika's house. The Belmania scanner once again captivates Yonika, as she mentions that upon seeing the small wooden house, everyone wants to find out who built it and what's inside. Yonika finds this reasonable, blushing as she tells Ed that when he met Melodor, he discovered a small wooden house and wanted to investigate. Is this normal right then? Yonika praises the beautiful house. Ed suggests talking to him about the prophets. Yonika explains somewhat shyly that the prophets only joke around, that Ed has many muscles on his upper body, especially strong arm muscles and slightly larger veins near the wrist. Listening to Yonika's daily reports, Ed notices her blushing. She can only try to say that she doesn't talk much with the prophets, so she doesn't know how Ed is doing. Upon hearing this, Ed invites Yonika to visit. Yonika blushes in response. Yonika is surprised that Ed has seen everything by himself. That night, she says she owes a great debt to the princess, and Rotel has helped him so much. She doesn't know how to repay these favors and falls into a difficult mood. Ed tells Yonika that if she can't repay, then don't. Debtors don't necessarily have to repay all debts. Yonika never thought about this before. The previous incident happened because she was pressured by that sincerity and affection. The loop hasn't ended yet. Ed tells Yannicka that when you want to be alone, you are always welcome. Yannicka blushes and says she's really happy. He has now moved from the upscale Ophilus dorm to a regular 8-student dorm. All day she lives under the admiring eyes of everyone, like a prison of affection. The fundamental issue remains unresolved, the loop hasn't ended. Ed tells Yannicka, when you want to be alone, you are always welcome. Yannicka blushes in response, saying she's really happy. Then Yannicka tells Ed that if anything makes her uncomfortable and unbearable alone, please let him know. Ed recalls what made him uncomfortable. It was the second period of the high-level magic book written by the philosopher Decivania. This book can even change natural laws. The second period is the storm caused by this ancient book that Rotel smelled of money, trying to swallow the whole school. Ed thanks Yannicka for her kindness, thinking he won't be involved in the main plot anymore, only Terry will have to work hard. This time, it will surely be exhausting. He can only be silent and cheer Terry on. The war to build Ophilus dorm has begun. The elite students of Ophilus live a luxurious life like noble descendants. In class, they can have good seats, and during meals, they are not only free but also served by servants. The problem arises when the holiday ends, and students return to school. The school only sends horses and boats for the elite students of Ophilus, even allowing them to return to school in a few days. When students arrive at school under the storm, students living in Deck's dorm are angry and erupt. Students have expressed their opposition to this issue. At that time, the daughter of a businessman seized the opportunity, and Rotel and the representative of Deck's students, Valerin, held a meeting. This man plans to strike a blow to Ophilus dorm, and the school only needs to provoke a conflict between students living in Deck's dorm and elite students. This could anger the students and force Valerin to make provocative statements, postponing student learning. The school must acknowledge the difference in handling between regular students and elite students, adjust the time for regular students to return to school, and manage the female minister of Ophilus dorm. Some administrative departments of the school stand with Rotel. The students are advised to cause strong disturbances, burn down Ophilus dorms because of the Glaska incident. The school is facing the risk of severe financial damage once again. Rotel Merchant Guild is discussing with the Academy about purchasing the philosophical book, which is a great benefit. The philosophical book is as important to the Western Academy as a heart. But when pushed into despair, the only option is to lay this heart on the table. The heavy rain outside shows no sign of stopping. This reminds Rotel of the time he used to live in the slums, unable to control his self-hatred for living in a comfortable environment. In this warm and sunny school, he can only live in the darkness. He would rather be a betrayer. He doesn't want to be betrayed, never revealing his true feelings. To survive, he must struggle in the mud. Despite the filth, he still seeks companions like this. Even though everyone here lives under the sun, one day, someone will appear. Everyone can understand his life in such a trash world. In this hopeless world, he is seeking lonely companions like Rotel to survive. His actions are all the same. Rotel is like a curtain behind the stage, concealing the truth. Everyone calls him Shadow. The students' opposition is growing stronger. They want a fair learning environment and equality in grades. This is Ophilus' rebellion in the original work, A Servant. When reporting the issue to the manager, the servant was targeted by others. From floors 1 to 5 of Ophilus, there are hindrances like the main character's small bosses. He is the small boss on the first floor, Tot, who mocked Terry. After teasing Terry and then regretting it, Tot was bribed by Rotel and taken away. The new servant on the first floor opens the door for students to rush in. Students demand basic treatment, after passing the first floor. Obstructing the main character and the group from entering Ophilus, they oppress these students. They need to occupy each floor to make a statement. The small boss on the first floor of the opposition action Tot has been bribed. They think the one bribed by Rotel is Tot. But the one bribed is Edrose Taylor. Ed doesn't know why he became the small boss. He is called the stubborn child who turned into the small boss of the second action. It all started 2 days ago. Although Ed's rank has been significantly raised, he still has no fighting talent. His archery skills are still weak, only able to use a hunting bow. After news spread that Ed lives in the forest, strangers like the maid Belle, the gunsmith Manya, Giggs, and the royal guards often visit. Among them, 3 are special guests. One is the genius mage Lucy, who has no fixed time and requests Ed to make a back door for him. Ed takes him out without saying a word. Lucy then requests a window on the roof. In short, guest A is very annoying. Compared to Ed, Ed prefers guest B because he always brings a little gift. Second-year student Jenica is very active. She comes every day to talk to souls or help Ed. Ed must praise Jenica. Jenica turns shy after being praised but sometimes has a scary expression. Ed had to praise Jenica for being great. After receiving praise, Jenica awkwardly turned her head, but sometimes had a terrifying expression and asked Lucy if she would come. Although the guests were sometimes a bit strange, overall it was normal, and there was also an annoying guest named C. That is Rottle's golden daughter, the boss of the Ophilus opposition action, recruiting Ed, who doesn't want to get involved, has repeatedly rejected his proposals. He doesn't want to ruin the original story. So he can't intervene. Rottle talks about Tot's fall. He asks Ed for help. Ed is shocked when not following the original storyline trend, quickly asks Rottle what happened to Tot, why Tot fell. The main reason is Tot believed Ty Lee couldn't defeat Graskin when things got complicated. According to the original storyline, Ty Lee just needed to cook a meal for Tot, and Tot told Ty Lee that according to the story, she even entered like a worm before Ed was only injured by others. And that person is Giggs. Ty Lee muttered that this was the first time he had seen Giggs so angry. Rottle told Ed that he just needed to bring the key that Alice gave to Ophelish Manor when the students gathered to open the door for them. If others waited for the end, they could accuse the school that Rottle was the mastermind because Rottle also didn't trust anyone else. So Rottle chose Ed, the least reputable person. As the second choice, Rottle asked Ed why he didn't seek revenge on Ophelish Manor after being expelled. Although Ed didn't want to do anything, he had to help Rottle for the story to develop according to the original plot. Rottle proposed to reward Ed with 20 gold coins. Ed had no choice but to work with Rottle to bring the story back to its original trajectory, by inciting Ophelish Manor to fall into a financial crisis. Rottle's actions aimed to undermine the internal structure of the school, then create a chamber of commerce for his own benefit, Rottle Chamber, and make the Queen Penia's student council oppose the ideal student council and the realistic business council. More importantly, the force Teddy ultimately chooses will win. Ed just had to sit and watch which force would win, then follow that force. At that moment, Yannicka ran under the rain, saying he would leave Ophelish Manor. Confirmed by Ed, Yannicka blushed and asked if this was really the Rose Garden. To prevent it, Ed asked Yannicka to leave Ophelish Manor, choose a place not far away, and avoid the rain. Ed looked at Yannicka with an irresistible smile. Yes, when the new semester starts, he will move his belongings here. Yannicka then asked if Lucy was always like that. Lucina possesses unimaginable power, but not without a price. Using laziness as an excuse, even this carefree girl had to think about her life on rainy days. Ed explained that he didn't care about Lucy, it was none of his business. Hearing Ed say he didn't care about Lucy, Yannicka was pleased. Ed then remembered that Yannicka was at Ophelish Manor and would start a large magic spell once the riot began. Covering the entire area, Yannicka's power could escape but might have an unstable element. Ed could only accept it. Ed told Yannicka, tomorrow at 9 o'clock, come to the Rose Garden in front of Ophelish Manor, I will explain the reason. After hearing this, Yannicka blushed and ran off. Feeling everything was progressing smoothly, Ed sighed. The heavy rain would last until the start of the long vacation, which ended before the riot at Ophelish Manor. He would let him know the specific reason when he heard this. Jenicka's blushing face confirmed that it was the Rose Garden. To prevent her from leaving Ophilus, he could only choose a place not too far away and could avoid the rain. After being confirmed by Ed, Jessica ran off feeling embarrassed. Progressing smoothly, Ed sighed. This heavy rain would last until the start of the long vacation finally ended before the Bao Phi Tu's violent outbreak. Jiggs is still practicing reverse on his hand and Kong Go Elka Lai Tuk Jian Nu Vei. When Jiggs finishes his training, he sees a figure unexpectedly through the window. It's Ed who came to open the door of Ophilus. He talks to the servant and learns that the head servant has called all the servants to a meeting room and locked them in with the cooperation of the head servant. Everything goes smoothly. The guide says everything is ready and placed in the corner of the Ophilus room. The rebellion at Ophilus begins. Students are gathering outside the Ophilus door. But they are stopped outside the door and cannot enter inside the dormitory. People are crying out against discrimination. This is a place of learning that should be fair. The representative of the poor students, Villain, is actively inciting everyone. At this point, someone opens the large door of Ophilus. Villain says the person Narathal bribed is you. That person is Ed Rose Tyler. Ed replaces Todd and captures the servant, stating that he always agrees with what Villain, the senior, says because he used to live in luxury at Ophilus. After being expelled, he realized he had always abused his privilege. Villain feels deceived by the rumors outside. He didn't expect Ed to argue like that. Ed quickly dismisses Villain to do what needs to be done. Although apologizing to Villain, someone always has to take responsibility. This time, the person responsible is Villain. Ed doesn't need to go catch the fleeing servants. Because all the servants are locked in the meeting room by the head servant, the students in the dormitory are still arguing about what is happening due to the control of the magic minister. The student protection spell has been used in reverse to detain students. Everything is happening according to the original storyline. Even Rother admires himself for handing this task over to Ed, the small boss, who can easily change the situation, has easily controlled the main group. Immediately after that, the wet Rother goes to Ed's small wooden house. Rother explains that if a teacher intervenes with poor students, they will be oppressed immediately, so they need to complete the task quickly before agreeing with this viewpoint. Ed also agrees with this viewpoint. Then Rother asks Ed if he has killed anyone yet. Ed is silent for a moment and then says he hasn't. Because all the maids are locked in the dormitory meeting room, the students are still noisy. What happened? Because the female minister's spell originally used to protect students is now being used to detain students. Everything is developing according to the original story. Even Rother, he did not, however, he has met many similar people. Because to survive, you have to trample on the lives of others to avoid betrayal. You must betray others first to achieve your goal. You must make your actions logical. Rother, the golden daughter named Rother, is formed like that. Rother also knows that he does not deserve sympathy, but a certain feeling pushes him. Rother asks Ed if he empathizes with such people. Rother is always looking for his kind, whether good or bad. Rother goes to Ed's small wooden house after getting wet. Rother explains that if a teacher intervenes with poor students, they will be oppressed immediately, so they need to complete the task quickly before agreeing with this viewpoint. Ed also agrees with this viewpoint. Then Rother asks Ed if he has killed anyone yet. Ed is silent for a moment and then says he hasn't. Rother says that he hasn't either, but he has met many similar people. Because to survive, you have to trample on the lives of others to avoid betrayal. You must betray others first to achieve your goal. You must make your actions logical. Rother, the golden daughter named Rother, is formed like that. Rother also knows that he does not deserve sympathy, but a certain feeling pushes him. Rother asks Ed if he empathizes with such people. Rother is always looking for his kind, whether good or bad. Rother says that he hasn't either, but he has met many similar people. Because to survive, you have to trample on the lives of others to avoid betrayal. You must betray others first to achieve your goal. You must make your actions logical. Rother, the golden daughter named Rother, is formed like that. Rother also knows that he does not deserve sympathy, but a certain feeling pushes him. Rother asks Ed if he empathizes with such people. Rother is always looking for his kind, whether good or bad. Rother says that he hasn't either, but he has met many similar people. Because to survive, you have to trample on the lives of others to avoid betrayal. You must betray others first to achieve your goal. You must make your actions logical. Rother, the golden daughter named Rother, is formed like that. Rother also knows that he does not deserve sympathy, but a certain feeling pushes him. Rother asks Ed if he empathizes with such people. Rother is always looking for his kind, whether good or bad. Rother says that he hasn't either, but he has met many similar people. Because to survive, you have to trample on the lives of others to avoid betrayal. You must betray others first to achieve your goal. You must make your actions logical. Rother, the golden daughter named Rother, is formed like that. Rother also knows that he does not deserve sympathy, but a certain feeling pushes him. Rother asks Ed if he empathizes with such people. Rother is always looking for his kind, whether good or bad. Rother should now discuss the plan for Alice and hand over the defense magic of Ophelus to Madness, then hand over this magic script to Villain. The representative of the poor students equipped with many defensive magic becomes the boss of the 4th floor of the dormitory at the border of the mad magic script to oppress Villain. That is the plot of this scene. Now Bear just needs to sit there and wait for Terry's group to attack. Just need to prolong the time. Become the boss of the 4th floor of the dormitory at the edge of the wild magic. It is raging to suppress Villain. That is the plot. Now Bade just needs to sit there and wait for Terry and the group to attack. Just need to prolong the time. Don't let Terry and his team enter the 2nd floor immediately. Looking at these, Ed left an unexpected note that said he might be late and asked Nenika to wait. He thought Ed might have prepared another surprise, and his face turned red. No matter what the yellow carriage is, Nenitsa will not leave the rose garden. He has been sleeping for 3 nights and is worried about what Ed will say. He always hears Miranda tell him about Ed. Just like Princess Penia Bell Giggs, and even Princess Rother came out of Ed's tent, because most of them were female students, which gave Nenitsa a headache, so he decided to wait for Ed. Returning home, changed his hairstyle, returned, no problem. Nha Na has returned to the OPHA Lee Institute. Now, Tai Loi and his teammates have also gone to the OPHA Lee Institute. Ali Vilil loudly said that his herbs are very valuable. If time is not collected, the herbs will spoil. This will affect the test results. Tailai thinks you should stop him. Elo told Tailai not to worry about Olivero not marrying a chef from the metallurgical department to take care of himself, but the danger is not Olivero's magic, but those students who make mistakes if Olivero does. Everywhere will throw a bunch of strange herbs. Considering that Terry and Elo are here, they quickly caught Olivia. After discussion, the two decided to take Olivia to the room on the 4th floor. He only wanted some herbs. If someone stops him, take them away. Now, Terry and the other two have also discovered something, which is the little boss on the 1st floor. Terry immediately asks him why he is at the OPHA Lee Research Institute. Olivia observes the surrounding environment from the footsteps of the students on the ground. Behind Edrosdale is the location of the stairs. He concludes that Edrosdale is trying to stop them. In fact, Edrosdale really wants to keep them. Edrosdale also said he will let them continue moving forward. Olivia believes that Edrosdale cannot stop them, even though he has heard that Edrosdale's magical abilities have improved. Only one 2nd grade student knows basic level magic, and they have an average level mage and the best alchemist in 1st grade. There is a significant power gap. Tai Loi directly asks Edrosdale what his purpose is. Edrosdale remains silent on this issue, but Tai Loi rushes directly in front of him, preparing to use violence to make Edrosdale say that he threw the chair outside. Edrosdale has stored power. A magic letter has been released from Edrosdale from the fluctuation of magic energy. Olivia evaluates that Edrosdale is using basic magic spells. Olivia thinks that the witch will target Tai Loi, causing the most difficulty in the upcoming battle. But Edrosdale suddenly changes the direction of the spell. A sword of wind flies up into the sky. It cuts the hanging lamp directly into Tai Loi. Faced with the unexpected attack, Tai Loi is blown away at this time at the dormitory at Ophelis Institute. Clavel, because of the previous attack, she still doesn't know what's going on in the smoke. Tai Loi, Ilac and their comrades confirmed safety for each other. Olivia tells Tai Loi not to care about him at this time. A sword of wind cut off Olivia's hair. This makes Olivia scared. Even the bag containing his medicine falls out with Edrosdale's serious face. It seems that a serious event has occurred from above. He easily creates a battlefield like a battle because Olivia's medicine has flown far away. He wants to try to get the medicine bottle, but no chance. Aid immediately surrounds him with a fire spell. The medicine bottle is also cut by the flames in this fire. They start fighting. Elvira also didn't think that Aid would evaluate so quickly and accurately. Why doesn't Giggs tell him everything? Appearance is not just about enhancing magic skills. The innocent heart of the girl seems to be deceived. He realizes that the boy he likes is full of evil, lying motionless in front of him immediately after. Aid and Terry. Elvira, Ayla, 3 people. Although Elvira is the head of the jewelry room but has no tools and power medicine to fight almost nothing. Magic students usually carry rings, necklaces and sharpening tools. Elvira considers herself a genius, completely unprepared for those things. Aid calculated even that he broke the crystal lamp, only attacking his bag, not the bag. Elvira also realized that Aid's previous attack clearly let Aid focus on a low-level magic. Elvira still has some backup tools. The rabbit is one of them, combining fire-resistant magic with a fierce painter. At this time, Ayla prepares a fire-extinguishing spell. Elvira has also noticed Aid's previous attack clearly aimed at distracting her, while Aid focuses on a low-level spell. Elvira still has some backup tools, including the rabbit, which is among them. Combining fire-resistant magic with the fierce artist, Ayla is now preparing to extinguish the fire. As the fire is being put out, a gust of windblade rushes towards Ayla. At this moment, the distance cannot be avoided. Terry intervenes to stop this windblade attack, while Aid continues to target both Ayla, Terry, and Elvira. Only he can hold him back. Elvira suggests shortening the distance for Terry to defeat Aid in close combat. Elvira commands the fierce rabbit to rush at Aid, while Terry takes the opportunity to advance towards Elvira, wrapping her coat around and rushing into the peripheral fire. This also allows him to distract Aid, as he still has to attack Elvira. The wind blade advances towards Elvira, but he calmly releases the vial. The wind blade strikes the vial, containing a potion that can suppress magical power. With a loud sound, the potion disperses into the air. At this point, Ayla's magic can no longer be utilized. This potion can prevent surrounding mages from using magic. Aid has dealt with the fierce rabbit with a dagger. Now, no one can use magic. But they still have Terry, the warrior. Elvira orders Terry to take advantage of this opportunity, as now Aid retreats directly into Ophelia Hall and spreads oil. The fire meets the oil, burning stronger, separating Terry outside. Elvira shouts as Aid, "You madman, if Ophelia Hall burns, the spreading fire will cause casualties." Terry decides to resolve everything before casualties occur. He ignores the flames and charges straight at Aid. Elvira wants to stop him but is too late, as he also notices the open window, indicating that flammable materials have been cleared long ago. Aid has calculated everything, even this, seen Aid draw his bow and Elvira trying to call Terry. Do not act hastily. Aid already has his bow ready. As Terry charges at Aid, he realizes that Aid's target is not him, but it's too late. Kiam-Soo overcomes Terry and charges straight at Ayla. Ayla cannot use magic, unable to resist. A bright sphere blocks Kiam-Soo, Elvira's final trick. The baiter can absorb small objects within sight. Elvira is amazed to find a piece of cloth on Kiam-Soo. Feeling that Aid is not serious in battling them, Elvira warns Terry to be more careful. Aid surely still holds a secret trick. While Terry and Aid battle, the second scene ends with Ophelia fleeing. Aid also completes the task, reducing vigilance. Ty Lee seized the opportunity to directly strike Ed, leaving Elvira bewildered and confused about what was happening. Ed completed the mission smoothly, and the fire gradually subsided. Ty Lee interrogated Ed, questioning the reason behind this. Elvira was filled with horror at Ed's match. It seemed like they were deceived by him. If they truly wanted to eliminate them, the match had ended long ago. Every time he stood in front of them clearly, Ed suddenly said, "It's finally over. If it's done, hurry up." Ty Lee and his team were all bewildered, not knowing what was happening. Elvira interrogated Ed on why he impersonated them. She never let Ed get away with it like that. As Elvira approached Ed more and more, a young girl with long hair appeared. It was her decision after much thought. The innocent girl always dreamed. But the distance between fantasy and reality can be cruel. The boy she thought would appear gallant in the temple was attacked, bleeding and lying there. That was the purity of Yen Jenica Pileup in action. An action that made the girl lose control, blushing. The original story shattered once again. Rotel was betrayed by friends and fell into a dangerous situation. When Yen Jenica received a letter, she realized the inconsistency. Ed said he would solve something. From Ed's life skills, to his actions at Graskin as if nothing is impossible. Now Yen Jenica also sees that. Because her naive thoughts have produced this result. Yen Jenica said if Ed had difficulties, she would definitely help him. But Ed didn't let her help, even leaving a note for Yen Jenica to leave the conflict area. While he fought alone, not knowing what was happening, Ed tried not to get into trouble, still caring about his attire. When Yen Jenica saw Ed injured, she was very angry. Ty Lee quickly explained that Din Opheles was attacked by classmates. Luckily, Yen Jenica wasn't involved. Meanwhile, Ed extended the time, surely for another purpose. Elvira yelled for Ty Lee to be more alert. Yen Jenica was the enemy. At that moment, Yen Jenica slowly said she didn't care what they wanted to do. Yen Jenica exuded a powerful force, causing the floor to crack. Ed tried to call Yen Jenica. Yen Jenica said it was fine. Elvira, seeing this scene, was horrified. The glass door also shattered due to the soul's movements about to appear. As the first bird-headed spirit creature emerged around Yen Jenica, countless spirit animals appeared at once. She ordered the spirit animals to attack Ty Lee and his team, while Elvira suggested escaping through the window. But Ty Lee chose to fight directly because he realized something from Ed. Not to mention fighting the class leader, Yen Jenica directly ordered the spirit animals to attack Ty Lee and his team, helping Ty Lee realize the reality and suggesting escaping through the window. But Ty Lee chose to fight directly because he realized something from Ed. Opheles being attacked could harm students. Ty Lee never surrenders to difficulties, so he will walk the path of a hero. At this moment, he had to do what he needed to do. He also waved a hand to push Ty Lee back, avoiding the spirit animal's attack. Ed asked Ty Lee and his team to quickly go to the second floor. Elvira was puzzled why Ed was still standing between them and now telling them to go up to the second floor. Ed discussed with Elvira, making her angry. But then Ed reminded Elvira not to forget to bring the medicine and apologized for causing that situation. A punch from Ed hit Elvira, who was tense. He also reminded Elvira not to forget to bring the medicine and apologized for breaking the cover. Although Elvira did not want to, she still accepted Ed's proposal and dragged Ty Lee and Elvira to the second floor. As Yen Nika prepares to attack once again, I-Duck approaches her. Yen Nika advises I-Duck not to try and leave the rest to him. Details will be explained later, so solve the problem and treat it immediately. I-Duck gently places his hands on Yen Nika's shoulders, explaining that he is really fine. Don't worry, Yen Nika, calm down immediately. She looks at I-Duck with a flushed face, unable to speak. He keeps repeating in his mouth. I-Duck's hand on his shoulder, he suggests that the souls return first because the wind is too strong, he can't stand. Yen Nika quickly realizes and sends the souls back, always apologizing. How foolish. Tai Lois group is shocked when they haven't gone far and I-Duck made the soul disappear. I-Duck also signals them to quickly go to the second floor. By now, I-Duck is also tired. He falls in front of Yen Nika. Then Yen Nika whispers to I-Duck. Why didn't you tell me when something like that happened, not saying that when you encounter difficulties, seek help from me? Right-Eye Duck explains that such actions have their reasons. Next time, well talk. Although not knowing the truth, Yen Nika feels Tai Lois group is too much, but next time if something like that happens, he will definitely not overlook the opponent, and has agreed with I Duck not to be injured in the future. Although not according to plan, I Duck has completed the task of the first floor, now can rest assured to live at the camp. Yen Nika suddenly mentions something he saw. A large yellow horse-drawn carriage in the Rose Garden. The carriage with a golden crown is the symbol of the chairman of the Ed Merchant Guild, also the one who raised R.O. He is the one who killed Rose's biological father. Finally, in Scene 2 of the War of the Royal Books. After failing before R.O., the fake boss at Vaughn arrives early at the academy. This means that in a place where I Duck doesn't know what happened. Now in the hallway of the 5th floor of Ophelia Palace, R.O. tells Alice that I Duck confessed his feelings to him. Alice is also surprised that R.O. likes someone like I Duck. R.O. explains that he doesn't look at appearances but senses a scent similar to Alice on I Duck's body. Unable to hold back, R.O. speaks touchingly. I Duck asks R.O. to take responsibility for his decisions and firmly pushes him away. R.O. blames himself as we can only hear those words for a lifetime. Alice before him. As a senior minister who has worked at Ophelia Palace for 20 years, from knowing nothing to becoming an intern. The school has also recognized her abilities despite her young age, but she has become the senior minister of Ophelia Palace. So R.O. spent a lot of money, even bribes, to make a large debt appear on the books. R.O. is delighted to have Alice by his side, feeling that his spending is worth it because he found someone like him who overlooks beliefs and values for money. R.O. can only feel free when he is with them. In the past, he gambled with fate in the garbage dump just for a gold coin. Now, what needs to be done is to take control. The defensive magic control for the 4th floor manager, Villain. R.O. says Villain does not want to arbitrarily destroy Ophelia Palace, so they need to act. Alice thinks the person in front of her is truly evil. As a big player, R.O. is also ready to hide in the warehouse to play a good student who knows nothing according to the plan. Alice feels sorry for the girl in front of her but still does not hesitate to draw her sword and place it on Rose's neck, solemnly telling R.O. he has never loved anyone, never opened his heart to anyone. He is not your friend, so die in loneliness like that.